Good. Asia Mahara here. BPD Hoovers. Are they impulsive or are they planned? What do you think? Could be different in different cases for sure, and not all people BPD Hoover. We have to remember that as well. BPD Hoovers. Sorry, I should have been talking while I was doing that. I forgot. So, are they impulsive or are they planned? Well, how is it that when the BPD Ex hoovers you because you haven't gone full no contact and you haven't made it impossible for them to do so because, of all you're going through? And like in my last video, talked about the no closure, etc. And so a lot of people are not in full no contact. People feel like they're not ready yet. Well, it's not about whether you feel ready or not. Let me just say that, because when you leave avenues open or an avenue open to be hoovered by your ex with BPD, they don't all hoover, but often they will. And what happens with that? Okay, well, before I get to is it impulsive or is it planned, because it could be either or part and part. And like I said, not all of them with BPD, not all exes of people BPD, people with, not all exes are going to hoover you, but many, many will. So here's the thing. People are struggling to let go, obviously, right? And that's to be expected. But let me say it again. You need to go full no contact or extreme low contact if there are children involved. And what you need to do is get into therapy for that multi-layered, multifaceted recovery from codependency, from all the agony you're going through, to find from the inside out closure, etc. So in the meantime, so many people are not ready. I hear this a lot, and we've seen it on the channel and in lives. I'm just not ready to totally block them yet. Well, is that a little bit of emotional code for, gee, I kind of want to hear from them again because I don't have closure, because I don't understand what happened? All of which is very true and very difficult. So anyway, there's all those things going on for people, but of course, if you take care of it on social media, every avenue that they could possibly contact you, and be full no contact, then you don't have to deal with this. And it's something to deal with. Yeah, something to behold. How many people are recycling back because of hoovers? And I think that this is on the increase. And there was a question on the channel, which I'll probably do another video on. Is this due to the current situation in the world or not? I think playing a role for many people, not always for many more people. So, are the hoovers of, is a hoover of the BPD Ex planned or impulsive? Well, people think it's impulsive, and people don't really think it could be planned. Now, when I say planned, it's not like people with untreated BPD plan that well or anything like that. But what do I mean by planned? Well, why is it that they always come hoovering with what you want to hear? Not what you need, because you need to block them, but they always come and say exactly what you really want to hear, need to hear. And what seems to be the soothing balm to your agony, right? BALM, not the other type. Soothing, it's just a soothing reality. The words are soothing to what you need. All that you've been worried about, all you've been wondering about, here they come along with all just the right words, and sometimes some form of apology or other, which is usually not, even if they mean it, nothing's changed. And often the apology won't really be like a real apology, but many people just kind of don't catch that for their own reasons. So how can it be totally impulsive when they have all the quote right unquote things to say? Because if it was totally impulsive, then how come they don't, because they're not re-idealizing you, So how come they don't approach you as if they are still in this devaluing you place? So what happens with that? Well, I think there could be a wide variety of things, but a couple things that occur to me that happen often, that I believe it's what's going on for X, your ex with BPD hoovering you. First of all, they come saying exactly what you want to hear, and so that takes a modicum of planning. It's not totally impulsive, I would say. And the second thing, or they'd be just all over the map saying stuff, and they'd still be angry with you. But when do they usually come? As I said in another video, a hoovering. They usually come to hoover after, whether they monkey branched or not, but when the relationship broke up, or they monkey branched prior to that, they go to the next person. Not every single person with BPD, but many, many, many of them. A big number of them. And so they've already gone on to the next relationship. And many people know this because you're hurting, you're in a world of hurt. I'm not trying to minimize that. After this happens, and the next thing you know, like the stealth reverse hoover, what does that mean? Well, when people who are the exes now of the person with BPD, you are looking at their social media. And many people do this, and a lot of people with BPD, for some reason, don't waste any time in getting pictures, with the new man or woman, and then splashing it all over social media and looking so happy, and it's in your face. Well, that's not unplanned either. So there's that. And then what happens is usually they're in another relationship, if we can call it that. They've gone on to the next situationship. And then, though, as many of you know, some relationships are longer than others, but some situationships, but then they rupture, they break down, or you get ghosted rather quickly often. Not always, but in many people's cases. So they'll go on to the next person, whether it's a monkey branch or after they ghost you, or relationship breakup, or half and half, whatever the situation might be, if you even know for sure. So then they're with another person, it doesn't work out, it crashes, it ruptures, and now they're alone and everything. So do they just like impulsively hoover you because you're the last ex, or maybe even the second last, you never know? Well, have you ever thought about, like, how open are you on social media? How many accounts do you have on how many platforms? How much do you post? No matter what it's about, even. Or, but especially if it's about your personal life or anything happening, but even if it's not. You have to think about that, because I call it the stealth reverse hoover when the ex, so if you, the codependent, the non-borderline, go look at the ex BPD's social media, I call that a stealth reverse hoover. So I don't know what we call it if the BPD, I guess it would be a stealth BPD hoover. What if they've been watching your social media for a little while? Because they're thinking about you a lot, which means, what's that code for? Well, they need, right? And they need that person to try to get identity through, and they have the object constancy problem. And so they need is like, they're thinking about you, but is it really about you? So no is the answer to that. It's more about what they need. But they might look at your social media before they contact you. Some can be much more impulsive and somehow yet say the right things. But again, then there's this other aspect of, I've heard this for like over 30 years, really. I've heard this from so many people. People who have, once they get on the road to the recovery, once we work through some of the initial stages of that process, and I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, they get to places in their healing. I've had many clients in this particular space where they really are doing better, and they really have gone full no contact. And we've taken care, through the process to get, I'm talking about clients who've gotten to this certain place where they may still be dealing with a lot, and there's a lot more to process and work on through recovery, but they know that they need to be no contact. They work hard to stay no contact, and so they don't fall into this hoover category. And they continue to grow and heal without being impeded by hoovers, because that's what hoovers do. If you don't end up recycling the relationship again, in which case you're going the exact opposite direction, that's going to do you any good. Like you're not going to heal. You're going to get into, like I said in my last video, more no closure episodes, and then another ending of the relationship. The cycle goes faster in the recycling of these things, and then you're going to be back at square one. And then you're going to be like having more no closure, more pain, more everything layered on top of what people get the first time around, which is quite enough. So the other situation that happens, but doesn't get acted on, what these clients in this particular place and stage of the work that I do with clients to help them heal and recover codependency and from these relationships, is when sometimes, like I've had clients who've had their BPD Ex show up at their house or something like that, but like maybe they didn't answer the door, they didn't interact, etc. But they were not wanting a hoover whatsoever. And the next thing you know, so what clients say to me about that is, like, as soon as they, I've seen this time and time, as soon as a client gets to a certain place where they really are moving away, for real, it's like there's some energetic thing. And I don't mean like woo-woo and all that. There's just some energetic thing out there that, or between, out there, some energy sort of thing that it seems that that's when an ex with BPD was maybe hoovered before, but you haven't heard from for a while, and you're working in your healing recovery process, so it's not your singular focus as it is for so many people. Well, there is something to this energy, unless they're seeing social media, or if you're not on social media, there's just this, they can just come back because they sense somehow, because they can be very aware that way, I'm not saying they're psychic, but they sense that you've moved on. And I really don't know how to explain that better, except I've seen lots of examples of it. But people are in the strong enough places, having done the full no contact, so that they don't engage it. But many a client has said to me, like there's something they know of, or a family member or somebody saw them, or they showed up at, well, not maybe so much in the world right now, but they would often, these exes would hoover people that had pretty much shut down. They were full no contact. But then they would go to their favorite coffee shop back in the day, what I'm saying? Like, it's different now. And the person would show up there, or a bookstore, or a library, or place of work, or, knocking on the door. But they would, like, not engage in any of these situations. And if they saw their car first, etc., they would leave, or whatever the case. If the ex were to come in, they would just get up and leave, because this is where the stage of healing and recovery these clients are in. So I think sometimes there can be, the hoovers from an ex with BPD can be very impulsive. But for it to be very impulsive, I think you also have to see a pretty disorganized communication. And I think lots of people don't see that. So the planning part might not, it could be impulsive when they decide to do it, but it's not without some planning often, because otherwise, why wouldn't they be speaking as impulsively as they just all of a sudden get in touch with you with whatever avenues you may not have closed? So I think that BPD hoovers are often sort of a combination of impulsive but planned, and that is that they plan what they're going to say, and what people with BPD who come back to hoover you say, like I said, is exactly what you want to hear. Doesn't seem helter-skelter, doesn't seem impulsive, does it? And doesn't it really rather mirror the initial beginning idealization phase? And this is what makes these hoovers, if you leave avenues open, it's like, even energetically, like people want the ex with BPD back after they've monkey branched out of a relationship, been with somebody else, and then that relationship falls apart, like all of the untreated BPD's relationships will fall apart, and then they come back and you want them back? So this is what people really have to think about. Why? What are you doing? And then there's all the, questions unanswered and the no closure. But BPD Hoovers are not as random or impulsive as they may seem. I mean, it can be different for many people. But that's what I'd like for you to think about, is that they come back to Hoover when they're good and ready, when it suits them always. It's never about you. And it doesn't matter how much they come back with a planned or semi-impulsive and planned Hoover, where they're saying everything that you want to hear and working as hard as they can to apologize and promise and promise and promise. And this could be after a couple of weeks or a month or 2 or 3 months when they've not gone to therapy and nothing's changed. And you're in that high, danger zone of nothing's changed for you either. So important to, go for no contact. But if you haven't, what do you think? Leave comments below, or, if you just share your experience. But do you really think that when they say exactly what you want to hear, what you've been wishing that they would have said for the whole relationship that you were in prior with them, it mirrors the idealization phase? But make no mistake about it, they're not re-idealizing you. They're coming to Hoover with the intention of getting you back, which is working way too often. And it might be more the world situation right now too, but it's just more and more people. And it works because you haven't changed, you haven't gotten into therapy, you haven't done much healing or growing or changing. They haven't done anything except blow through the next person and now want to come back to you. Why does that seem like a good deal, or like that would work? So anyway, BPD Hoovers, I think, have an element of planning to them often, but just as often could be impulsive. It depends, because they're not all the same. And then I have to add in again that not all people with BPD Hoover, but they know exactly what they're going to say to you, and they know exactly what you need to hear. So then I would just raise the question here, so how is it that there's so much, like, quote, amnesia, unquote, in BPD? How can they come back? They've spent maybe a couple of months or more or less, whatever, with somebody else, getting to, trying to know them, but the whole thing, the identity through them, etc., the repetition compulsion cycle over again. And so maybe some time's gone by, but they're going to come back and say exactly what they know you need to hear. It's not just some generic thing that, like, all people with BPD say the same thing. There's some elements that might be similar. But if there's this big BPD amnesia thing happening out there, how do they come back hoovering with all the right words and all the right promises, all the right tone? And you know what? They could really feel remorse, some of them. They really could. But how in the world is this good for you? So have you ever thought about if the Hoover is impulsive or if the Hoover is planned? And let me know in the comments below whether that even matters to you. Do you care? If the Hoover is, are you somebody who's waiting for a Hoover, just got a Hoover, or where are you at with it? And if you've just gotten a Hoover, or somebody's Hoovering you and you haven't responded yet, but you're not sure what you're going to do because you're not full no contact, do you think it's planned or do you think it's impulsive? Do you think it's just like some random thing? And how is it that if you've been Hoovered, whether you got back into and recycling the relationship or not, what was that like for you? If you could share a little bit, if you'd like to help others. You can all share together, hopefully, or a few people will share, because it's the feelings, really, isn't it, that the Hoover is so gonna, I don't know what word to use, but that's what does it in a way, right? That's why you're not like, you're not in a I'm not going to pay attention, but so many people aren't in a, if you're not full no contact, you're open to a Hoover. And again, people don't always realize what's going on below the consciousness, right? So, is it planned or is it impulsive? And it could be a bit of both. But what if they've checked out your social media? Because when they come hoovering back, how many times, this is something I haven't heard of very often, that by the time an ex comes back to Hoover, the person hasn't usually moved on yet. Person isn't with it. I mean, it takes time and it's wise not to. But the person is usually very much in that sort of kryptonite, weak, vulnerable place to be hoovered, to hear everything from the person who you thought they were, as it was more or less mirrored, and you were people pleased and idealized in the beginning. Well, here comes another version of that, and that's why it's hard for a lot of people to resist. But make no mistake about it, it's a mirage. It's whether it's heartfelt on the part of the ex who's hoovering, planned or impulsively, dangerous. Really need to take care of yourself and block those avenues of contact. So I think a lot of the hoovers with the ex, your ex with BPD, to each one of you out there, are not as impulsive as they seem, because they are about their need. A realized need might happen quickly after their next relationship, or after they ghosted you, whatever the case, but after the next relationship already ruptures, breaks up. It could happen quickly after that. But it's not like they're coming at you in this totally impulsive way where they aren't saying, like they're speaking carefully and they know what to say, and they don't kind of waver all over the place, and you're not getting re-idealized, but you're not getting devalued. Like, they're not saying to you, well, hey, and they don't really forget a whole lot, do they, when they come and say what you need to hear? So what do you think? Are these hoovers planned? Impulsively planned? Impulsive only? Because I think there's a lot more to these hoovers that aren't so impulsive, because these people may be, depending how many relationships they've had, what their cycle is like, how short their relationships are especially, they're very sort of patterned in this hoovering. And whether it works with one ex for a while and then they go on to another one and then another one, and then maybe they'll hoover somebody else the next, you never know. But I just don't think they could say everything that you want to hear, no arguments. And some people, I work with clients who've been hoovered, and they'll say, and then he or she said, and I said, and I asked this, and I asked that. So it's not like they don't get some pressure from a lot of people they're hoovering, their exes. But no, they don't get angry. They don't act the way they would normally act, or the way they acted in the relationship. So is that all impulsivity? Because I don't think so. What do you think? And of course, if you go full no contact, you won't have to think about it, and it won't have to matter. But there's so many people out there who aren't ready, can't get there, understandable, going through a lot. So again, I would suggest they're not as impulsive as they seem. And remember, they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. And then they're trying to make it look like, not really consciously or anything, but like they're thinking about you. Oh, I really love you. I'm sorry, because I don't know what I was thinking. And then this excuse and that excuse. And have you noticed that you've been hoovered, whether impulsive, planned, or impulsively planned? And no matter what they say, they're still not taking any responsibility. So I would love to hear your feedback on this. Hope this was food for thought. Everybody, take care. I hit the wrong button there, can you tell? Anyway, definitely take care, because you don't know, if you don't take care of yourself, a lot of people with BPD will hoover. They don't all hoover. Is it impulsive or is it planned? What's been your experience, and where are you at with all this? Now, I'll just say it again. Take care.